Cavaliers, Pacers, Eastern Conference semifinals. Spencer Davies, Spencer German here to break it on down with you on the latest episode of the Courtside with the Cavs on SI podcast. That's right. Welcome on into another episode of Courtside with the Cavs on SI. I'm Spencer German, of course, my partner in crime, Spencer Davies, Spencer Squared action going on for you with a special episode of the podcast here on a Tuesday night when the Cavaliers actually didn't play, because we now know the results of these first round, at least two of the first round series in the Eastern Conference, and that paves the way for the Cavs and the Pacers to square off in the semifinals. Start of the series, game one of the series, TBD at this juncture, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But Spencer, I honestly think this is this is actually a fitting, comment to start with. Tom S., who always stops by with us, he says Milwaukee choked, and I think that's a really good way to put that, how that game ended for game 5 between the Bucks and the Pacers. On two different occasions, they were up like 6 or so points late with under a minute to go in both regulation and overtime. And in both instances, the Pacers were able to find a way to win. And so Milwaukee is sent packing, and the Pacers are moving on because they couldn't hang on to a late game lead.
That's what you said in your text messages. And when you can't put them away, that's going to happen. Now, we shouldn't talk about the game, I guess, more or less the series. I have my thoughts on how the Cavs match up with the Pacers. I'm sure we're going to get into that. But, man, if that's anything to tell you that Indiana just doesn't give up, that's one thing. I know that a lot of it had to do with Milwaukee making a lot of mental mistakes, just badly timed kind of errors. But Indiana just keeps coming at you. And they are a fast team. They are a loud team. And they are pretty well sized, to be quite honest.
Yeah, no, that's a good starting analysis for them as just an opponent in general. You're right about the Bucks. Certainly made some mental mistakes at the end of that game and choked it away. And I will say this too, the Bucks were obviously hobbled. No Dame in game 1, and then he gets hurt in game 3, and you kind of see the writing on the wall there in terms of this series is probably over. I kind of assumed they were going to lose tonight, and they gave it a valiant effort. Giannis was kind of trying to will in a victory. So was Gary Trent Jr. We had a Gary Trent Jr. game that unfortunately came up short.
It's a second Gary Trent Jr. game, by the way.
That's right.
Hell of a game a couple of games ago, too.
Yeah. So, listen, I think the Bucks gave them their best shot. Now they move, the Pacers obviously move on. And I do think one of the interesting elements about this matchup, Spence, is the Pacers kind of have what you want if you're the Cavs. They made a run to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, sort of pushed the envelope on how far a team can maybe go in this conference, especially when you got the Celtics kind of in your way. And the Cavs are trying to sort of now do that a year later. And so in some respects, it does feel like this is this is kind of a fun matchup because for a number of reasons, but also because it will be a test for the Cavs to sort of prove hey, they were a representative in this game last year, and now we sort of want to prove to them that we're the better team and sort of beat them on the way to doing it ourselves. And so I do think that experience factor for Indiana will play a role in this one. We hear so much about young teams just not being ready, right? I kind of think about this right now in relation to, the Rockets right now, right? Against the Warriors. You're playing a veteran team versus a young team that's still trying to kind of figure it out. And I think a lot of people doubted the Rockets in this postseason for that reason, for the fact that they just haven't been here and seen it enough. The Pacers, they aren't that. So that's why I kind of think it's a good test to have to go through them, a team that was in the Eastern Conference Finals a year ago, to sort of push and see, how legitimate you are as a title contender. They're going to test you. Like you said, they keep on coming. And then that'll set the stage if you get through them for a potential rematch with Boston from a year ago. And the matchup, I think everyone's kind of been penciling in is how this thing was going to shake out from the beginning.
Well, we are going to be talking about the Pacers and stuff, and I don't want to stomp all over your take, but the Rockets thing is interesting to me because they do have a ton of veterans. They've got the Dylan Brookses of the world and the Steven Adams.
That's true.
Fred VanVleet came up huge in that game last night, even though they couldn't come out with it. So I don't know if they're a young team. Now, with the Pacers, you look at last year's East Finals, the way that they played against Boston and the job that they did, and bringing in just even more kind of experience, like you said, but also pelling forward guys like Andrew Nembhard. And I can't even say Myles Turner because he's been around for a long time now, but, Tyrese Haliburton having his moment in the sun, and, Aaron Nesmith bringing a lot to the table too. So, and we know how much of a nuisance that TJ McConnell can be. So, like, this is going to be an irritant of a series, I think, for the Cavs. And I also believe that they are kind of a match made in heaven just for the naked eye watching how they both play. It's going to be fast paced. It's not going to be much like Miami at all. I don't think that the Pacers are going to pull out any 2-3. I don't think that any team wants the Cavs shooting threes right now the way that they're chucking them up there and doing a good job of getting their offense. But look, man, like your main matchups, you look at how Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen are going to fare against Pascal Siakam and Myles Turner. You look at the Haliburton matchup. A lot of people say Hallie versus Donovan Mitchell, but Hallie's going to be against Darius Garland quite a bit too. The benches, I think, are an interesting one too, because Obi Toppin's had a number of good games in this past series that I feel like he gets a little bit glossed over. So there's a lot of talent on both ends of this. And, 1-4 matchups are always fun. Second round matchups are always fun, especially at the beginning before everyone gets worn down. But hey, both of them take care of business really quickly. And we're going to have a game one this weekend at some point.
Yeah, you started getting the X's and O's there, and obviously it's going to be a fun series. Real quick, to just go back to the Rockets thing real quick. That's just the most recent example I can think of like, hey, this team it's more so like they haven't done enough in a play. Like they haven't seen it from that team specifically, that iteration of that team in the playoffs yet. And I think this applies to other teams. The Thunder are talked about similarly. They're so good, but everyone's like, well, they haven't been tested enough in the playoffs. I think they talked about this with the Wolves the last couple of years. Like, well, the Wolves haven't been tested. It's always just like a narrative. It's not even necessarily true, but it's just the way that people sort of talk about these teams. And that's not the case, obviously, with Indiana, who, like you said, made that run to the Eastern Conference Finals a year ago. And are battle tested. So they will test you in that way. A lot of fun X's and O's matchups to get into. You mentioned Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen against Turner and against Siakam and how they're going to sort of guard those guys. More fast-paced from a matchup standpoint. What are some of the key elements, matchups, things that you're looking at in this one that you think could sort of decide who has an advantage or who comes away winning 4 out of 7 here in the coming weeks?
This series is going to be about rim protection, man. I'll tell you what, because Tyrese Haliburton loves to get downhill, and what he does is he does what DG does. He gets to the middle of the floor, dumps it out for his teammates to shoot threes, but Tyrese got to the paint really, really easily tonight, and usually does get to the paint easily because he's got so many quick twitch kind of crossover moves. He gets you on your toes because you don't know whether he's going to do a little toe tap, step back three. He has a very high release. I feel like between Turner and Jarrett Allen, those guys are going to be probably the most important in this series because Myles Turner, I'll tell you what, man, like he has earned everybody's respect now over the last couple of years, and he has turned into a bona fide stud as a deterrent there in the paint. The way he's able to time his stuff up, the way he's able to contest and ultimately get blocks. And I feel like in this series, I think Game 3 was the best I think I've ever seen Myles Turner play. Like he was everywhere, and not only just on the defensive end too. He's somebody that can stretch the floor, shoot the pick and pop. He's able to dive towards the rim on pick and rolls. Like he's a very, very good player, man. Like Myles Turner is a lot to handle, and that's just not even talking about the growth of a guy like Andrew Nembhard too in the backcourt with Tyrese Haliburton, who Nembhard hit the 3 that cut it down to 4 tonight before all the chaos ensued. So like you look at that shot and he's made a lot of big ones in his career. I mean, the people that have been watching him from the beginning obviously want to get Gonzaga, but then you look over at the time that he hit the game winner against the Lakers a few years back, and he was a rookie. Like, he's meant for these kind of moments. So those are a couple of taller guards that they're going to have to handle, and I'm sure that we're going to see a lot of switching. We're going to see Evan Mobley step up onto him. We'll see DeAndre Hunter matched up with these guys, Max Strus. I'm sure Sam Merrill will be on him. So I'm interested to see how the Cavs stop them from coming inside of the perimeter, because if you do that and you get Indiana kind of trying to pull up a little bit more than doing the drive and kick, then you're probably going to be in a better spot. On the opposite end, I think the Cavs just have to continue what they're doing. I don't think that there's any, secret to the sauce to what the Cavs bring to the table. They are who they are for a reason, and they know how to play the game. Offensively, I don't think there's going to be any much confusion about certain matchups. Like, I think you can just kind of go at them. And like, if Myles Turner's awaiting, then dump it off to the outside and let a guy shoot or drive off of a closeout and then, do your business from there. But the Cavs have so many secondary and tertiary actions within their sets that they're going to be in fine shape against them. I think it's more about the defensive end in this.
Yeah, and throughout the season, the Cavs defense has been a little bit better than Indiana's. Indiana's been more middle of the road in terms of defensive rating. Cavs flirting in the top 10 throughout most of the season. They dropped off a little bit in the second half of the season, but their defense is back to playing exceptional throughout this postseason so far. Who do you think, the primary responsibility of Haliburton? I know they're going to change things up as the game goes on, but is that something that, like, out of the gate, it's a Max Strus responsibility, and then maybe it's a DeAndre Hunter responsibility? I'm sure Okoro will get some looks at him, understanding like how important he is to what they do offensively. But who do you think is probably the primary defender on him? We know that they're going to try to switch DG into those types of matchups and things, but who do you think is the Cavs are going to try to throw his way to slow him down?
I think you said it. I think it's Max Strus, DeAndre Hunter. You have Isaac Okoro you can go to there. It's going to be hard because, unlike Miami, Indiana has guys that are capable of handling the basketball. They have Nembhard and they have Haliburton. And then when they need to go to him, they have TJ McConnell, who is one of the veteran guys that is going to be such a nuisance for the Cavs to deal with. He's always hustling. He's always in the backcourt, picking up full, doing those little kind of dribbling up on the baseline and has those like little 10-foot turnaround shots. Like, those are going to be ones that really get in the Cavs' minds, that will be annoying. But I think if you can get one of those guys uncomfortable, one of Haliburton or Nembhard, depending on who's bringing the ball up, because I feel like the Cavs are going to try to get it into Nembhard's hands more, then you have to be sure that you don't lose the other guys off the ball. I think that's the main thing. And you brought it up. I think it's going to be Strus, Hunter, Okoro on Hallie. I'm sure that we'll see Evan on Hallie. I'm sure that we'll see JA on Hallie. The way that the Cavs do their switches and have them out in the island and trust them to keep up with them and all that good stuff. But man, like I said earlier, Tyrese has a heck of a crossover, and then he has the ability to blow by you with his agility, but also to trick you into thinking he's going by you and going backwards and trying to step back and shoot that really long, elongated three-point shot.
How much does somebody like Ty Jerome, you think, in a factor into this? I mean, we know he's so important, but like, how does he just add a different element to the Cavs in a series like this? I mean, we saw what it meant in the Miami series, but Miami was a team that just didn't have the horses to obviously hang with the Cavs anyway. But in a series like this, where Indiana's deeper than Miami, they have multiple guys who can handle the ball. How important will he be in this series, especially just coming off the bench and being able to provide that spark?
Huge. Ty Jerome's going to be one of the most important players on this team. Same with DeAndre Hunter. Same with the whole rotation. That's just how the Cavs roll. They are a deep team for a reason, and it's one of those things where if they take away DG, if they take away Donovan, somebody's going to end up filling in that void. That's just the way they've done it all year, and that's why I'm very confident in the Cavs. And I think that they're confident too, but this one, they're going to have to deal with a little bit more offense from the other side just by nature of how fast the Pacers do play. And I think that that's going to be the biggest difference and the biggest adjustment from Miami to Indiana, is that this pace is going to be high. They're going to have the proper conditioning to deal with it. And I think that they will. It's just going to take a little bit of time for them to get reacclimated to that pace, even though the Cavs do control the pace in most of the games. So maybe less of that, but there's going to be a lot more shot making from the Pacers than you saw in Miami. And it's not going to just be one trick pony. Okay, we can force one guy into bad stuff, because they have a lot of guys who can score. Like I said, Myles Turner on the pick and pops. They have Pascal Siakam, who I'm sure we're going to see on the block, and he loves to do his little left-handed shoulder fade away. That is the Pascal Siakam shot, that 14 to 16 footer. So a number of guys can do damage. I think Nesmith is really underrated in transition. He is a very bulky, burly guy who is going to commit hard fouls. He's going to really give you a tough time defensively, but then also offensively, he spots up in the corners. He can shoot a little bit, and he obviously can drive on closeouts and get to the rim pretty well as well. So those are the guys I think that you look for as like your kind of X factors. I think like the Nesmiths of the world are an X factor. Like, as I mentioned earlier, Obi Toppin, and then McConnell being the absolute pest that he has been for a number of years now, is going to be who the Cavs have to deal with on that end. But I think that, again, the Cavs have who they have for a reason, and they are stacked. And I'm really interested to see how they come out in game one, especially with all this rest. And you know that Darius Garland won't have played a game for over a week.
Yeah, well, and the saving grace is you got the Heat. You disposed of the Heat quickly, where you now give him some time to just kind of get off his feet. I'm sure they would have liked Milwaukee to win tonight, to even give themselves maybe a couple extra days here to get DG sort of off his feet and healing up with the toe injury that he's dealing with. We haven't heard anything in terms of like the severity of that, right? Like they just kind of been treating it like day to day. Okay, yeah.
It came on a closeout. He didn't even land on someone's foot. He just landed on it himself, a little funky.
Because I honestly, Spence, like I was thinking when they didn't play him in game 4, I wondered if it was like precautionary. I didn't watch Kenny's post game or anything, but I wondered if it was just like, listen, we feel like we're going to be able to take care of this team tonight without him. So we're not going to like force him back. Like, let's just keep him sort of in bubble wrap for the time being and make sure that he's good to go for their second round, which is obviously a wise move too. But yeah, I'm going to anticipate he's going to be fine. But obviously, with this team and given their injury history in the playoffs the last couple of years, I know people hear any sort of injury, and I'm sure it makes them a little bit nervous about like how long it could linger or whatever. But I'm not overly worried about that with DG.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, it was a good move on their part, because obviously the last couple of games in Miami went very well for the Cavs.
Well, and I think seeing game 3 and how it went made it easier to be like, yeah, we're just not going to play DG in game 4. Like if it had been like a close game, maybe you're like, all right, let's just get not the elimination game, but like, let's get the closeout game and get him out there and make sure we put this thing away. But because it went, they cruised on Saturday, they were like, yeah, we'll cruise on Monday too. Why the hell not?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think that, again, good decision. And you're ready and up for the second round already, just like Indiana did, is they won in a gentleman's sweep. So I think that that's really fun. I want to get your opinion on this, because you've been giving me the Q&A so far on this pod. I feel like I got to throw one your way. So, you know me, I always am scanning through Twitter and my little feeds and whatnot. And it's also really bad when you go on Facebook and you see the Facebook groups and the Facebook fans. But because of those last 2 games, there are obviously fans who automatically point to the negative even after like 50-point wins.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, we need to trade Garland. Like, that was the first thing.
I know where you're going with this.
And people were asking, like,
you're like,
the Cavs better?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it irks me to no end. I'm like, how do you come to that conclusion after seeing a team play so well? And it's not like DG hasn't been part of the blowouts. Like, I don't know where that comes from, but I just wanted to get your take on that.
See, it's funny you said that, because I woke up this morning and I saw a tweet that was like, I really don't want, it was from a colleague of mine that works in radio. And he was like, I'm staying as far away from the Darius Garland, Ty Jerome nonsense for as long as I can. And I was like, what happened? And so I literally ran to YouTube to see if I could find like Ty Jerome's post-game comments. Because what I thought it was because I saw the word nonsense, and I thought it was like a continuation of the big feud you started, Spence. I thought it was like Ty Jerome now jumped in and was like, yeah, Tyler Hero sucks. Like, that's why we beat their ass in the like, I thought he said something after the series was over. And so I went back and then I listened to like they had like 4 minutes of him talking on the YouTube channel for the Cavaliers. And I was like, he didn't say anything inflammatory. Like, what are we talking about? And then I realized that it was the comment, like what he was referring to was the commentary around DG or Ty Jerome, or the Cavs better without DG. And see, this is why, Spence, like we asked the question in our last episode, I believe it was, like, who has the most to prove this postseason? And this is why my answer was Garland. Because, like, yeah, you could say Evan Mobley and you'd have a good answer because of, you know, he hasn't done it on this stage yet, and he's supposed to be the guy that takes the biggest leap to take this team to the next level. You could say Donovan in some respects because he hasn't gotten to the third round of the playoffs in his career. Like, there's a number of good answers, but I think Garland is the answer because of this. Because this is what happens. The second he's injured or the second he like has one bad game, everybody is ready to trade his ass to Siberia. Like they're ready to just ship him off. And it's every season is the same thing. And we saw it last year. And last year, like it came from, I think, the frustrations of like from him too. Like he had a frustrating season, and because of the injury experience, the face, the broken jaw, he missed so many games and like he never got into rhythm. His game just wasn't there. He was clearly not the same player. And then that played out in the postseason where he was just not. He was absent. Like it didn't seem like he was there. And I understand why that frustrates fans, but I'm willing to understand the context of the situation and give him some leeway there. And this year he came back out, was an all-star. He's been so important to this team's success. But again, it's always about what you do in the playoffs. And so right now you have 4 games of Ty Jerome and a couple of them where he just completely balled out. One of them where he dropped 28 and like propelled you to victory. Although people forget that Darius had a really good game in that game too. And then like you win in, running away in games 3 and 4 without Darius. And it's like the easy thing to say is, well, we got to trade this guy this offseason. He isn't it. And let's pay Ty Jerome. So I think it's exhausting. I don't know why at this juncture, they just swept the Heat. Like they're a really good team. They've proved that already through the first round, at least. Why can't we listen, if they get like swept in this round or like lose in 5 or something to the Pacers, then yeah, we can have some serious conversations about like the makeup of this team and what needs to change. But if like, can't we let them see if they can figure this thing out first? Like they've given you no reason to doubt anybody on this team to this point when they won 64 games and they just absolutely boat raced their first opponent in the playoffs. Like, we're not even at a point of turmoil where it makes sense to have these conversations. Like, if they lose to the Celtics and like they get blown out in 4 games or something, I'd get it. I'd understand it because it's like, how do you get closer to this team where you're going to have to change something? But we're not even like there's not even anything sky is falling mentality to have. Like, I don't understand where this is all coming from. It's bizarre to me.
After a 55-point win and a 40-point win, and that's the thing that came to some people's minds. It just does divide, man. Like, I just don't know where it comes from. And you know that the guys see that stuff, and they've just got to be like, ugh, like, what are we doing here? So, you can't control people's thoughts and minds, unfortunately, but it's pretty crazy, man.
I mean, look, I'm a sports talk radio guy. You know this about me. You throw that at my face or in my face sometimes when I say things. You did it a couple weeks ago when I was texting you about Rory McIlroy choking again. You're like, radio guy take, and then he won. So like, we have some fun with it. But I'm also a sensible human. At least I like to think I'm a sensible human. Like, I can use context. I can understand a situation. I'm not just gonna like bury Darius Garland because he didn't play 2 games and Ty Jerome looked great. Ty Jerome's looked great all year. But like, I want to give this team a chance to breathe. I want to give this team a chance to sort of see and see where they can go before we just start selling off pieces. Like, and I'll admit, like, hand to God, I was right there last year questioning, can DG and Donovan Mitchell fit? Like, I was right there. We talked about it on many of our commentary that we did on this very channel. Like, I had my doubts too, but this year they have proven with Kenny Atkinson's help that they can function together. And so I've backed off of that, and I'm willing to see where it gets them, like how far they can take this thing. Like, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here because they've earned it. So I just don't know why everybody doesn't understand, I guess, that same perspective, because it's bizarre to me that we're one series in, a series sweep where they just, again, outclassed their opponent, that we're already having these conversations. Like, let's at least hit some turmoil before we start even bringing this up. It's just weird to me.
Agreed. And it doesn't have to be said, but DG's giving you the 3-pointer. He's giving you the floaters. He's giving you setup. Yeah. He's taking care of the basketball against one of the better teams in the NBA at turning you over in the first round. So I think that right there off the bat just shows you the kind of value that he has. And I just can't wait for even the smallest population that doesn't believe. I cannot wait until DG comes out and just balls out on the biggest stage, because you know it's going to happen.
I'm throwing this up here. Howard Scales is accusing me of rambling, so I made it up. I didn't make this up. Spence asked me the question. He saw it even more than I saw it.
Yeah,
so
I mean, yes, it's the vocal minority, but like even the fact that 2 or 3 people have that in their brains is just dumb.
Again, me rambling about it isn't meant to be like, hey, everybody on social media was saying this, but even the few people that brought it up and brought it to light and made it a topic of conversation that people were even contemplating talking about on other platforms.
You think it would be kumbaya after a 4-game sweep, and
that's the bigger point here, is like
undressing of another
team.
Exactly.
So I swear I didn't make it up. It was responding to what was posed to me from Spence about why this is even a topic, and I'm as confused as him as to why it is. Another thing real quick on the matchup with the Pacers. You talked about it a couple times. The pace of play in this series, I think, is going to be hugely important to like who wins, who can handle that better, who can shot make while they're playing a lot of minutes and running as much as those teams do. So, like, this is where the layoffs, I think, factor in, like how they use these next couple of days to get their conditioning up. And this is the thing we talked about with Kenny at the end of the season, right? How he was trying to expand minutes for Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland and make sure that they were sort of, and the other starters, I was just naming 2, but all the guys that are out there as their starters, like, because they do, we've said it, the first series, they were able to go 10 plus deep because they were so much better than Miami. As you get deeper into the playoffs, I think that bench is going to shorten a little bit at a time. And there might be certain matchups that work better in this series than maybe a series with Boston. I've already said it. I am waiting for Kenny to deploy a lineup that has Dean Wade, DeAndre Hunter, and Ty Jerome in it. Like, I don't think he's used that at all this season. And so, like, there's some things that he's going to have up his sleeve for a potential series like that. But I don't know how much we'll see of everybody in this series. But the pace of play thing is I think, going to sort of dictate who wins this game, and who controls that pace and is able to shot make off that pace is going to be huge. And I do think, like, you're going to see Donovan playing more minutes. You're going to see these other guys playing more minutes, and they have to be ready for that challenge of, they haven't had to do that all year. So will their legs sort of be ready to support them at the most important time of year? So that's why I think, like, the conditioning here in the coming days and getting sort of acclimated and ready for all the running that's going to happen is going to be huge as they prepare for it.
And you know that he's going to have the top 7 playing the most minutes.
For sure.
Like, there's no doubt that those guys are going to be the heavy guys. And then you have Merrill, Okoro, Wade. And then, you look at maybe those like 8 to 12 minutes, maybe specialization minutes. That's what you look at, I think. And it also is dependent on matchups. And maybe we do see the Cavs go small again because it worked so well against Miami. Yeah. Maybe they try to go smaller against Indiana. Who knows? But they have their set guys. They know who's going to be getting the brunt of the playing time. And Kenny's managed it beautifully all year. Yeah, I don't think it's anything to worry about with him.
Listen, I thought there was going to be some like a little bit of a chess match with Spo because he's such a brilliant coach. It turned out like this chess match was Kenny said we're going to go small. They were able to beat them with that sort of set, and they never really had to look back. So I'm definitely curious with like a tougher opponent in front of you how those chess games are played, because that was one of the knocks on JB Bickerstaff was like he didn't have enough levers to pull. He didn't have enough cards up his sleeve, aces up his sleeve to pull or to throw out there. Like Kenny, he tries everything. And so I'm curious to see, like, will he go small in this series, or will he try to go small. Maybe that wins him a game and then it loses him a game and he's got to go back to something else. So that will be fascinating as that chess match to see another level of Kenny doing that in the postseason. I do think too, Spence, and maybe this is a good sort of place to wrap ourselves up, but I do think there's been a lot said. Like I've heard national people asked about like second round matchups that are the most intriguing to them or that could be interesting. And I've heard a lot of people mention this one, which they were sort of forecasting this is what was going to happen. Cavs Pacers as one that like is almost like upset watch. Like the Pacers really are going to give the Cavs some trouble. Do you think the Pacers are going to give the Cavs some trouble? It's interesting too because at the end of the season they played 2 games in like 3-game span or whatever it was, and they didn't really you didn't see what that matchup was really going to look like because the Cavs had locked up everything. They didn't have anything to play for. They just played a bunch of role players. They weren't really going for it. So Kenny was able to save some things. But I think it's interesting that this is being said, and I do think it has a lot to do with just the length and the pace of play that this team has and their ability to make perimeter shots and those things, which can give the Cavs trouble at times. But I still sort of go into this one feeling mostly confident about the Cavaliers' ability to get it done. It's not going to be a sweep. It might be 6 games. Maybe it goes 7. I think right now I'd probably say 6. I'm not going to give an official prediction because we're going to have a pod later in the week where we'll do that. But I think I think it's going to be longer. But I'm not sitting here like, I don't know that I feel the same as some of these national pundits do, that the Pacers are going to be such a problem to Cleveland that they actually could pull off a series win. I feel confident the Cavs are going to get this thing done.
I think you can turn them over. I think that they can get a little loose with the ball. Now, they are going to pursue the ball. Watching that game against Milwaukee, it looked like a damn rugby game. So
yeah.
Be prepared for that. They're going to be physical. Pascal is a tough dude. Myles Turner's a tough dude. As I mentioned, Aaron Nesmith. Shoot, I didn't even mention him, but Jarris Walker, if he gets in there, that is a big guy. So make sure that you're ready for all that physicality. You're ready to go chase the ball. You're ready to get the boards on the stops because, as we know, the defensive boards is where the Cavs have fallen short before. So if they get those things figured out and make sure that they're still aggressive defensively and that they're definitely on their rotations as well, shifting over on the baseline to cut off a drive or making sure just to shuffle the feet and then feed them into one of J.A. or Evan if there's no switch. It's the little things. It's the little things in those series. But for your question, yeah, I think the Pacers are definitely going to push them. I think the Cavs ultimately win, but I think that the Pacers are going to push them, and I don't think there will be any shell shock by that. They've had good games all year long against Indiana. They've been really fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to the series. Can't wait to see the ball tip off. I'm sure it'll be Saturday or Sunday. We don't got a time yet. Saw that there was a question on that.
Yeah, I did see that too. I was going to get back to that too.
But I'm looking forward to it. I think you mentioned it on our show yesterday after the Heat game. It's like, as long as they take care of their business, to take care of themselves, and they don't inflict self-wounds on themselves. Wow, I said that really stupidly. I'll say
self-inflicted wounds is what you're looking for.
As long as there's no self-inflicted wounds, then I think they're going to be in all right shape.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. And I hate to sort of just harken back to what Kenny Atkinson said at the beginning of the playoffs, which was, we just got to be ourselves and the rest will take care of itself, essentially, was his message to his team. But I think that is the theme here. Like, they're a good team for a reason. Like, they're as good as they won 64 games for a reason. They blew past the Heat for a reason. I'm not going into this series overly concerned about Cleveland's ability to get past the Pacers in some capacity. It's just a matter of like how many games it's going to take. So I'm with you. Like, if they're themselves, if there's no self-inflicted wounds, if they're making their shots like they tend to do, I think they're going to be okay. And I think it's a good point to bring up on being able to turn them over. I also will go to this real quick. Radu, who listens quite a bit, he jumps in, lets us know that the Pistons look like they're about to force a game 6 against the
103-100 I got right here.
Which is interesting because, man, like the complexion of that series could be so different with that one bad call. I mean, there's been a lot of bad calls in that series, I think, in general, but the one bad call that really cost the Pistons last game, like, think about how the complexion of this series would be different if the Pistons had actually won that game. So, JB Bickerstaff, I'm sure Cavs fans are big fans of him right now. His team is giving the Knicks a run for their money here, trying to force a game 6. And we know the Celtics are in action as we're recording this as well. They're at like halftime, though, so still quite a bit of time to go on that one. As Spencer said, we don't know yet when the Cavs are going to play. Could be Saturday, could be Sunday. Please, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it's Sunday, but we will see. And yeah, I think this is a good place to sort of wrap. But Spence, obviously, we're looking forward to plenty more content. We will have, I'm sure there'll be practice at some point this week. We'll try to get out there and get you some stuff, but also we'll have another episode of the podcast before that series starts, where to the point of who brought it up, who asked the question about how long do you think the Pacers series will go? We will answer that question on a future episode of the podcast. I promise you. We're not going to give our official
radio guy with the tease here.
We got to tease it. We got to get people to come back in. So we'll contemplate and think about it a couple days. We've only had like a couple hours to think about this one, really just an hour. So we'll come back with an episode later this week before the series starts and give you our official predictions and talk through some more X's and O stuff and whether or not we find out more about DG's toe and all those different things. So go ahead.
I have one more thing.
Sure.
Just going back to the DG conversation and the people that were doubting you, I'm coming to your aid.
That's why you're my partner.
There are real people in my mentions, not just with the dog pictures. There's not just the nameless, faceless accounts. Real people that have actually mentioned that to me. So just saying,
it's happening.
When you do what we do, we get some interesting things in our mentions.
Take that, Howard Scales. I told you I wasn't making it up.
We appreciate you listening, though, Howard.
I just ramble because I ramble, not because I didn't know what I was talking about. It's a real thing, okay? It might not be the majority of people, but it's a real thing. As always, I encourage you to hang out here at the Cleveland Cavaliers on SI YouTube channel and check out any of our content from throughout the playoffs. Like I said, stay tuned because there'll probably be more practice content for you guys once they get back to work here leading up to this series. We'll have post-game stuff for you once the series gets rolling. We'll have more comments, more podcast episodes, as I said, and obviously our post-game stand-ups each and every single night as well. So stay tuned for all that. Also, head on over to Cleveland Cavaliers on SI, the real website, si.com/NBA/Cavaliers. And you can see in their written content over there as well. But certainly looking forward to round 2 of the NBA playoffs. Cavaliers and Pacers, the stage is set. It's going to be a fun one. We look forward to covering it with you here with the Cleveland Cavaliers on SI. And, of course, with our podcast, Courtside with the Cavs on SI. We'll talk to you again soon. Keep on following along with all things Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers on SI.